What we're hearing from all the clients that we're talking with here in Paris, and even in our offices back in those countries, is that they really want to move forward with action, both in increasing resilience to climate change, but also taking bold actions in order to reduce carbon emissions in a number of countries. A lot of them are focused on the fact that climate change affects poor people more than it affects other people around the world. And they also recognize that investments in resilience, if you make them now, give you a much better return than waiting and trying to respond to disasters later. So that's a strong focus. The second focus is that there are a large number of things that can be done to reduce carbon emissions that produce other co-benefits. So for example, introducing smart urban transport reduces congestion, but also reduces emissions. A number of countries in Africa are looking at increasing access, but doing this through scaling up solar, which will also reduce emissions. And so we're seeing a lot of enthusiasm to actually get on with it and start implementing some of these projects. One of the important areas from the World Bank's perspective is to focus on how we can work with our partners in Africa. And we launched here in Paris a climate action plan for Africa that focuses largely on building resilience. So resilience, which includes things like working on Lake Chad, to work with communities to provide resilient livelihoods going forward, working on the Niger River in order to ensure that people get both improved livelihoods but can be more resilient to climate change. The second part of this is building resilience for energy, scaling up solar energy across the whole of the continent. And then the third part is addressing some of the more institutional issues, which includes things like a resilience fund in order to help countries build and develop projects in the future for climate resilience. One very important thing going forward would be to send clear signals about the cost of pollution. And therefore we believe that widening and deepening carbon markets across the globe will be an important priority moving forward. We believe that going forward it will be very important to build public-private partnerships in order to bring more private sector financing into both things like renewable energy, but also to encourage the private sector to provide support for resilience. And that will require very focused attention by the public sector to try and de-risk investments and crowd private sector financing in. We believe that action is required now urgently in order to address climate change. On the one hand, to build resilience, to protect poor communities against the impacts of climate change, and secondly, to take faster action now in terms of reducing carbon emissions, because we know that if we don't do this, it'll be the poor that suffer more than anybody else.